Welcome back, students. I am your SST teacher Vandana Joshi and you are watching SST June. Students, in our today's video, we are going to revise 6th chapter of history, town, traders and craftsperson. In this revision, we will study the condition of towns during the medieval period and the condition of the traders and the craftsperson during the medieval period. So, let's start our today's revision video. Students, we got information about the towns and the traders mainly from the archaeological excavation, literary sources such as official documents, the traveler's account, biographies and the autobiographies of the rulers and the empire. So during that time, many administrative centers and the pilgrimage centers were there. So let's discuss what were the administrative center and what were the pilgrimage center. So first, the administrative center. The place where kings held their courts often developed into the towns. Among such cities were Delhi, Ajmer, Kannauj, Ujjain and Dhar developed under the Rajputs. The capital of the Cholas, Tanjore was a very good example of an administrative town. There were mandapas in the palace where the king held his court, gave orders, and made his political and administrative decisions. Now, what are the pilgrimage centers? Pilgrimage centers are the centers or religious place where people go for the pilgrimage. In Hindi, we can say Tirth Yatra. During the medieval period, the famous pilgrimage centers were Banaras, Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Amritsar, Dwarkapuri, Patna, Fatehpur Sikri, etc. The dargah of famous Sufi saints such as Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti at Ajmer and Khwaja Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia at Delhi are also some famous pilgrimage centers which attracts a large number of devotees. Now, what was the network of small towns? The small towns during the 8th century were a kind of network through which the big cities were connected. And these centers were also a focused center by the small vendors through which they can follow the big traders in the big temple towns and the cities. There were a number of trading towns like Agra, Surat, Patna, Ahmedabad, Delhi, Calcutta, Malwa, etc. The major products produced here were textile, paper, opium, indigo, etc. They become the meeting points of foreigners and the Indians from where export and import of goods were started. Now let's see who were the big traders and the small traders. Both traders and craftsmen had an important place in the economic activities of the country. Indian craftsmen were perfect masters in producing articles of different kind of good quality. Even in some areas, like they were perfect master in the field of textile industries and their cotton, woolen and silk clothes had no comparison in the world. Kashmir was famous for carpet, silk clothes and the woolen clothes. Same like that Agra, Multan, Fatehpur Sikri, Jaunpur, Alwar, these areas were famous for their producing carpets. So, the merchants and the traders of this period were extremely rich and led a luxurious life. Bombay was the city of wealthy merchants. They had beautiful houses built of fine stones and tiled roofs. Their houses were surrounded by the orchards. The small traders were known as the Banjaras and same like that. They were the merchants who were selling their goods and products by roaming place to place. They were also known as the craftspersons, or we can say the artisans. The blacksmiths, goldsmiths and many weavers were also included in the craftsmen. craftsmen of the Bidar were so famous for their inlay work in the copper and the silver that is came to be called Bidri. As you can see in this picture, here goldsmith's work is there. There were many bronzesmiths, blacksmiths, masons and the carpenters. Those were doing their work very beautifully. Even their work was very essential to build a temple. Now let's have a look of three main important cities during the medieval period. These cities are Hampi, Masulipattnam and Surat. So first of all we will see Hampi. Hampi is known as for their architectural splendors. So Hampi was the capital of Vijayanagara Empire and it was situated near around the Tungabhadra river. It was a very fortified city because it was covered from all three sides. So the attack of the enemies were very rare in that city. Here are few famous temples like Hampi, Vitthal temples and many more you can see in this picture. So you can see the architectural work of Hampi. But after attacking by the 5 small kingdoms, the beautiful Vijayanagara kingdom and Hampi was totally finished and they burnt Hampi including several monuments and temples and turned Hampi into a ruins. Now let's see about Masulipattnam. Masulipattnam is also known as Machilipatnam. The name was earlier Machilipatnam but later it was changed into Masulipattnam. It was famous for the fishing and other things like the marine based life. Masulipattnam is also famous for the dyed cotton clothes which were known as the Chinj clothes. And these clothes were very popular in Europe. You can see an example of Chinj clothes and the kalamkari in this picture. Another famous city was Surat. It is also famous nowadays. Surat is a port city and it is situated at the bank of river Tapti in Gujarat. It is also famous or known as the Manchester of the East for their clothes, especially for the cotton clothes and the textile industry is there. Indigo industry, sugar industry is also situated in Surat. During the medieval period, it was famous for the cotton textile and pearls. Even today, it is famous for cotton textile and diamond trade. But after the decline of these three famous cities, a new kind of towns and trades were emerged during the 16th and 17th century after arrival of Europeans and the Mughals. The trades were changed. The towns, the famous towns which were known as the trade towns, they were also changed. The weavers, the smelters and the artisans and the craftsperson were forcefully removed from their own cities and forcefully they were moved into the black towns which was established by the European companies within these new cities. These cities were known as the Black Town because the people who were living in that cities, they were Indian. As the Europeans were white in their skin color, so they consider Indians as the black. And the cities which were developed by the Indians, these cities were known as the Black Town. Students, it was the revision of town traders and craftsperson. For more videos and updates, keep watching SST June.